Welcome to Radar Radio. We've come back this edition with our guest Dan Tompkins, who is known for many different vocal outfits within the scene, but predominantly Tesseract. Today we've got Ash, myself, Catherine, and Joe speaking to Dan. So good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Morning.
Well, actually, technically afternoon at this point, but
Afternoon.
It's whatever time you're listening to it.
Exactly. So Dan, how are you finding the lockdown?
In some ways, it's been a blessing in disguise, which sounds a bit of an odd thing to say, because everyone's online all of a sudden because there's nothing else to do. So being an online streamer, that that really helps me out. So I'm not totally disliking the situation at the minute. The only downside is it's the fact that obviously we're all stuck inside. We've got a family, we've got kids, and my wife's a teacher as well. So yeah, she has to work from home, and we have to switch and look after the kids. Normally, we get to work when the kids are at school, but when you've got two little ones buzzing around your feet, constantly begging you for things and wanting to play, it's very distracting. But on the other side, it's amazing to spend so much time with them as well. So pros and cons. I mean, obviously life is very disruptive at the minute, but I guess you've got to try and look on the positive side and make the most of a bad situation, I guess.
Yeah, I think it's now, as a sort of date stamp for when we're recording this, it's 20th of April, so we've had, say, 3 or 4 weeks of official lockdown. So I think it's getting to the point where people have made their adjustments and started to work out the routines and formats of how they're actually going to survive throughout what is a new world for many. So yeah, it's a time when those are starting to be formulated, and isn't it 21 days to make a habit? So I suppose we're essentially heading towards it becoming the new normality at this point.
Well, I've actually been been inside for 5 weeks now, pretty much, because I self-isolated because the kids and Emma and myself all had symptoms. So we stayed. The kids were off school 2 weeks before the schools closed, which is, yeah, we definitely feel like we're going slightly wild.
I don't think you're alone in that in the UK currently.
I tell you something though, I really do feel for people that don't have a garden.
Yeah.
For people that maybe live in a flat or high-rise flat or something like that, it must be absolutely terrible.
Yeah, Angelo, our operations chap at Radar, chatting to him yesterday, and I keep using this anecdote, like when people ask me how I am, and I've got a massive garden, and I live a 5-minute drive from the most incredible woodland. So me and my partner have been going for really nice walks in the sun, and
it's amazing.
Could be nicer in that regard, but Angelo, he's got a flat in Croydon, nice flat, but he's stuck in the middle of a built-up area, and it's really starting to get to him. And
yeah,
and that's why I keep saying to people, like, I know I'm lucky.
Totally, I get that. I've been going for some early morning runs recently, and I just absolutely love how quiet it is. Wow.
Yeah,
just running
this
down
morning,
the streets. It's beautiful. It's beautiful, isn't it?
Yeah, I'm in Cornwall actually, just near St Ives, and yeah, it's just absolutely stunning. You kind of feel a little bit guilty for being out. Obviously, you try and be safe, but yeah, it's just absolutely amazing views, and just so quiet, and the sea air. It's yeah, it definitely beats being stuck at my house back in Bristol.
I love the timeline of you messaging me this morning. We were having a chat, and you were sort of asking what I'd been doing and the exercise I'd been doing. And you went, well, I'm going for a run. It's going to be great. And speak to you in 30 minutes. And then an hour later, I got a message from you saying how much you were suffering for your first bit of exercise in a couple of months.
That's funny. Have any of you been binging and overindulging?
No, not really. I mean, I've watched less TV than I thought that if I was presented with this much time, I would watch nothing but box sets. But actually, I'm probably watching half an hour to an hour's TV a day. And it, as Catherine said, it took a really long time to suddenly presented with all this free time, and I kind of felt like I was on school holidays. I was sort of wasting every day in a sense, just sort of mucking around. So I've had to impose a strict Monday to Friday's work. So between 10 a.m. and about 3 are work, and then make weekends a weekend. So you try and have more fun on the weekend and make it something special. Well, that's what the Guardian article I read told me to do anyway, and it actually works really well.
Yeah, I've been similar actually. The amount of admin involved in cancelling all events that I run and essentially curtailing my own income was quite overwhelming. It would have been easier to put the events on in hindsight, but now that most of that admin has been out of the way and sorted, I found quite a relaxing evening routine of watching Mortimer and Whitehouse fishing, actually, of all things, because it's really relaxing and they're obviously very funny and their friendship is absolutely adorable to watch. So it's not quite the Tiger King that everybody is raving about, but it is a quieter
right.
sort of calm down from having to. I assumed I'd be doing less work, but actually I feel like I've been doing more work and more work that I didn't really want to do. So as
every time I speak to you, you're just doing something or going to the post office or so I don't think you should feel, well, you can't feel guilty about not doing
have to add to that though that I spent a good year and a half thinking about a absolutely terrible royal family jigsaw that I think a friend gave me because I thought it was quite funny how awful it was. And as soon as the whole prospect of lockdown and the virus was introduced, I do remember saying to somebody, sort of like, this is the time for that jigsaw. And I did dedicate, as Joe and Ash can attest to, a couple of days where all I would do is make sure that Prince William's skin tone was discernible from Prince Harry's, and I had a wonderful time, and it is possibly the worst jigsaw I've ever seen, and I was incredibly happy to do it. So, no.
Wow. Would you have ever done a jigsaw like that prior to this lockdown?
Many people have suffered, and I'm not undermining the corona as a whole, but I have had my royal family jigsaw time, and for that I am incredibly grateful. What about you, Ash?
What a time to be alive, eh?
Just trying to think, really. No, not just. Yeah, just kind of been trying to learn things by ear on guitar, really. Just testing, trying to get back into things. I guess I used to enjoy when I was younger. Not really feeling that creative at the minute. I don't know if that's just because of the situation, but definitely trying to push myself on a couple of things and learn new things and relearn some old things.
Well,
yeah, you got to try and use your time wisely, haven't you? In some way.
In terms of speaking to you specifically, Dan, one of the things that we wanted to focus on to start with, obviously, we predominantly know you from Tesseract, but I know that you were in the police force before deciding to become a full-time singer. So how was that transition something you approached? And obviously, in hindsight, I'm assuming that you are pleased with that decision, but that must have been hard to go from a full-time employment to what is more of a precarious income.
Yeah, I didn't really have a plan, I'll be honest. I never studied music, so I didn't have any qualifications in that department. Never studied music production. I just wanted to sing, and I knew that I loved it more than anything else. So when I joined the police, it was kind of a plan B. I actually started out, I think my first job outside of sixth form college was working in Wickes building supplies, and I worked there for 2 years, and I ended up becoming a warehouse manager. So I was on the forklift truck quite a lot, and I quite enjoyed the job, but it was really intense, and it was actually really hard work, and kind of got to the point I was like, what am I doing with my life? Where's this going to go? what options do I have available? So at that time, I would have been, around about 18, 19. Started jam, and I used to be in bands, like with friends, just jamming the guitar and trying to pull something together. Never really happened. But so I thought to myself, what am I going to do? So the options were quite limited. So I applied for Derbyshire Police on a whim. Managed to get to the last interview, actually, which was quite difficult. They didn't allow me in at that point. They suggested that I get some experience working as a special. And so I thought, no, not doing that. So I applied for Notts Police straight on the back of that, and sailed through all of the tests. And this is at 18. And went straight into Notts Police, studied in Birmingham, Tally Ho, and then was stationed in Bulwell in Nottingham. And that's where I spent pretty much 8 years service until I got to the point where I'd been trying to get a career break for a good couple of years, because I'd actually been I mean, if I try and put this in some context, so around about 2000 and, well, let's say early to mid 2000s is when MySpace was a thing, right? So I used to go on there, looking around at different bands, and Sixth were a thing. They were a newly discovered band for me. I heard them on the Mary Ann Hobb show. I think it was 2000 maybe, something like that. And I instantly fell in love with Sixth. So I followed them on MySpace like crazy. And all of a sudden I saw them advertising a band that were auditioning for a singer. And I decided, I can't quite remember when and how and why, but I know that I made the decision that I wanted to be a singer, and I was just going to audition for whatever band that I could and just start making friends and networking. And that's pretty much what I did. I remember seeing this advert on the Sixth MySpace page, and it was for a band called Piano. And Dan Weller and Justin Hill from Sixth at the time were doing their Weller Hill Productions thing. So they were mixing and producing other rock and metal bands in the scene. And they managed to, Piano had their first EP mixed by Dan and Justin. So that's where the relationship came from. They'd obviously sacked their previous singer, this band called Piano. And Dan was obviously helping them out. So they put an advert out, and I saw that. And I noticed that they were from Nottingham. So I was like, oh, wow. Awesome. Checked out their stuff, really enjoyed it, arranged a rehearsal, and I remember it really well, but I treated it like a job interview. I was really prepared because I really wanted the job. Turned up with my own mic in my own mic bag. I had my own mic cable, my own mic stand. I had all the lyric sheets prepared. I'd learnt all the songs, rocked up, and after the first song, the guys were like, "Cool, yeah, you're in the band."
Wow.
I was like, "Sweet, okay." And then they were like, "Well, are you around in the next few weeks, because we're supposed to be doing a tour in Japan. We're signed to a Japanese record label, and they want us to go over there and tour for 2 weeks. We sacked our singer, and that's why we need a new singer. Can you pull it off?" So I immediately put in the annual leave, went on tour to Japan, did the north and south of Japan for 2 weeks, and that's where it all began for me. That's where the flame was ignited, and there was no turning back from then. I was gigging left, right, and centre, networking, joining even other projects. I joined a band called First Signs of Frost, as well.
Yeah, I love those
And
guys. Well,
yeah, it was
you guys as well.
Was Al Heslop in that
they were
band as
around
well?
for a while. They were doing really well. And
Was Al Heslop in that band as well with you?
no.
No. Oh, okay. I thought because he was in kind of a new metally band with a name similar. I thought, well, that
All
rang a
right.
bell.
No, I didn't actually know Al until I joined Tesseract through Jay.
Right, yeah. God, love
But
Al.
yeah, I kept asking for a career break. Basically, they declined it a couple of times, and that was at the point where Tesseract approached me after supporting them with First Signs of Frost in Milton Keynes, at a place called the Pits, which is now closed. And they said, we have an opportunity to work with a record label. We've got an album that we're working on. can you demo some vocals to a song? I said yes. It's when I'd literally just got my first DAW, so I got like one of the early versions of Cubase. I recorded a 30-second demo of Origin, which is the end bit of the song, I remember. And again, Amos came straight back to me and said, great, we'd love to have you in the band, just based on that. The fact that they'd played a gig with me before, seen me play, and I gave them a quick demo, and they were like, yeah, you're in the band. I was like, crikey me, I must be doing something right because bands are snapping me up. And then, we signed to Century Media Records. But the problem was I was still a serving police officer. So I had a chat to Emma, and I was like, look, this is my dream. This is what I want to do. I'm very unhappy being a police officer. I mean, you have to understand that for like a good, 8 years, I was working day shifts and then driving to London to meet people and do gigs, and I drove everywhere, all around the UK, doing tours and shows, independent one-offs.
Wow.
And then I'd go straight back to work at 3 a.m, and then start another day shift. And I did that consistently. I really burnt the candle from both ends. And but it's what I wanted to do. It seems so far away now, but thinking about it, man, the hours, days, weeks, and months that I committed to trying to be a singer when I didn't really know how to sing, didn't have any musical background, is pretty crazy, to be honest. Like, when I look back at how far we've managed to come, like where it all started out, it's like it just didn't make sense. There was no logical way that it would ever work out like this. I just feel like I managed to meet some really amazing people, some great musicians, some very supportive friends and family, and opportunities just arose. I think if you work hard at anything and you work for long enough and you've got enough drive and focus, I think the world will gift you with what you're working towards. But you've got to work for it.
Yeah, I've definitely subscribed to the mantra of the harder you work, the luckier
More
you get.
opportunities, I guess. But yeah. So then I resigned. That was it. Boom. Went from earning top whack as a PC to earning a couple of grand on my first year self-employed, and I had to take on 4 different jobs. I was a delivery driver. I worked in a clothes shop. I worked behind a bar in Mansfield. I did everything I could to try and survive. Luckily, I think the rest of the guys in Tesseract, after the first year, they all had kind of something going on in the background, and they were stable enough to kind of exist. But the thing is, I'd come from a lifestyle that was kind of like a very predictable way of life, really. You grow up, meet somebody, propose, get a house, get a car, get a loan, get a mortgage, all that kind of stuff. And I was locked in. I was definitely locked into that life. And I decided to leave all the financial security to do music and to discover that actually it was going to be another real slog to kind of work my way out of that. Because like your first record deal, even on a reputable metal record label, post everything that happened in terms of the digitization of music, I think that was like 20. Well, around about, when did everything start going pear-shaped for the music industry? Was it like the late 2000s?
2005 or so, I'd say, from
something like that.
So,
Yeah.
having
So
the
then, yeah,
vinyl shop,
crazy.
I used to order in, say, 100 CDs a week, and then within a year it went to 100 CDs a year easily. So yeah, it was around that
Right.
time when things like MP3s and downloading and illegal acquisition of music definitely, you saw that impact. So that obviously had the knock-on effect to the record industry.
Man, it's crazy. I just wanted to be a singer. Didn't even know what a record deal consisted of. Didn't know how publishing worked. Anything like that. I just thought, get a record deal, made it, boom, let's go from there. But actually, it was very much about just getting an opportunity and opening a door. That's what our first record deal was like for us. It wasn't financially sustainable to live off a record deal. We had to go on tour consistently, and I remember the first North American tour with Tesseract. We came back with a couple £100 each, and I had I had a month and a half's mortgage to pay, and that it caused a lot of friction. Well, not necessarily friction. It was just a very difficult time. It was like whenever a tour opportunity would come up, I would be like the first one to say, I want to do it, but I just don't know how it's going to work. And there's so much instability. And I've obviously got, a partner in the background who's like, what's going on? How are we going to do this? So yeah, that's why I initially left Tesseract the first time, because things got too difficult for me to kind of continue.
Yeah, that's I think that's a popular thing with bands that start to break through, especially obviously if you've got previous commitments and relationships and and a lifestyle to maintain. And I can't imagine it's an easy decision to make, but obviously you came back in the end. um, and you had other projects such as Sky Harbor. How was do you think maybe juggling all of those bands was potentially maybe not as productive as you like looking back? Do you think that might have affected your ability to kind of to manage all of that as well?
It's like when you actually announced the podcast and you were saying like, oh, Dan Tompkins from various different projects and stuff. I kind of feel like that hasn't really done me any favors. If I would have known how the music industry worked and what it meant to be in a band and how important it was to actually have a stable lineup for a band, I probably wouldn't have left. I probably would have tried to find a way to keep it going. But yeah, when I left, I was suddenly in a position where I was like, well, there's no chance I'm going back to the police, so I'm going to have to take on part-time work and find another route back into the music industry. And I'd obviously got some level of reputation from doing the first album with Tesseract. And so I started to guest and collaborate with various different artists, all underground. And it like slowly off the back of all these little offshoots of things that I was doing, they gained popularity. And like the Sky Arbor thing was never meant to happen. It was just me doing a bit of a guest feature on some of Keisha's music. And then we suddenly got offered to support Lamb of God and Guns N' Roses in India. And Keisha was like, do you want to do this? And I'm like, well, yeah, I guess let's give it a go. Because they're like one-off shows. They weren't like big tours. So it was an opportunity that I thought, well, this is surely going to open doors. It's going to be good for this project. And, so just like, again, just doors kept opening. The door never closed on me in terms of music. There was always something there to keep me going. But I do think that I oversaturated my own presence in the industry over the past kind of like 12 years. I mean, I've got a playlist on Spotify, right? And it's something that Casecoat put together off the back of me releasing my first solo record last year. And it's called the Daniel Tompkins Complete. it's got man, I'm gonna just tell you. And this it doesn't actually contain every song that I've written. There's actually like the Hadji's Kitchen stuff isn't on there as well. But if I God, how many? Right, so it's Daniel Tompkins Complete. 135 songs, 10 hours and 24 minutes.
Wow.
And that's like all the back catalogue of stuff.
Is piano on there as well?
Piano's on there. Hadji's Kitchen isn't on there. Absent Hearts, First Signs of Frost, a few little obscure guest features. There's 2 Sky Harbor albums, 2 White Moth albums, the Zeta release, and 3 Tesseract albums and an EP. And also my solo record that came out last year. So I've been busy, but I do think that I've oversaturated. I've spread myself way too thin. I mean, if I think about all the inspiration, all the lyrical ideas, all the concepts, all the melodies that I've created, I feel like, especially last year, I got to a point where I was like, there's nothing left. Like, where do I find inspiration now? And that's why I started to listen to a lot of contemporary pop. and because the production in that world and the songwriting is absolutely fantastic. It's not everyone's cup of tea. Like there'll be a lot of metal, purists out there that just won't even leave the world of metal. But I mean, myself and all the guys in Tesseract, man, we listen to some crazy stuff, like a whole eclectic mix of stuff. Sorry, yeah, kind of lost the flow there, but
with that in mind, you're talking about pop, etc. There was a point where you and Dan Weller did In Colour.
yeah, I can do
talk
actually.
about that a bit.
So when I left Tesseract, obviously, I was, involved in other things, and that was something that became a thing. So Dan and Kieran, so this is it's so incestuous, right? So Kieran Cahill was the drummer and pianist in Piano. So the first band that I ever wrote. Okay, Dan Weller from Sixth and Kieran became very good friends over the years, and they started to write music together. And this was when Sixth went quiet. They stopped writing music, and so they both lived in London and they were writing music. And obviously, I'm Kieran's friend. I wasn't doing anything at the time, and they were like, "Do you want to, give this a shot?" Because Justin, their other singer, was the singer at the time, and for whatever reason, it didn't work with him. I think he was pretty busy with his own production business, and so I ended up working with those guys, and we actually had some involvement from a very reputable management company and a big record label, and they sent us to Thailand for 5 weeks to a 5-star recording studio to record our album, and it was one of the most amazing experiences I've ever had in terms of music production. It was insane. Like literally, the day that we landed, Jamiroquai left that recording studios, and he was like there recording stuff, and yeah, it was crazy. So we recorded the whole album, but there were other issues. There were problems in the background, and essentially, because we'd been shipped over there, well, flown over there, and we'd been supported financially, and essentially been given a loan. The label that paid for it owned the masters, and the relationship broke down with that particular label and the management company, and we were left with nothing. We were like, well, we've recorded the whole album, we've done all of this. Now we've got to go through a legal battle to find out whether we can even use those songs anymore. And we were stuck in deadlock for about 2 years, trying to, meetings with lawyers, trying to chase it. And because we were an unknown project, we went right to the bottom of the pile in terms of the priority list, and we were just shuffled to one side and forgotten about, and it broke the whole project down. There were lots of opportunities for us to get signed and do some amazing things, but it was a project that unfortunately died a very, very slow and painful death, and I learned a lot from it. It was definitely an experience, and yeah, in essence, that's it.
It's difficult to remember. I mean, I put you on twice, didn't I? Once in Bracknell and once in Guildford, and I remember both times they were fantastic gigs. But because the music's not out there, I can't quite picture what it was, which was a shame. It was really, really fun time, and we also we put on White Moth, Black Butterfly, didn't we?
Yeah,
that was a good time as well.
Yeah, you guys have been really good to me. You've definitely given us a few opportunities to get things off the ground and try new stuff. Like when we did those In Colour shows, it was very much a case of we're going to put the feelers out and see how it goes, see what kind of response we get from people. And it was the same with White Moth. Really, that was never really a project that was meant to be live. We just decided to again test the water, see if it was possible. But it never really was. We weren't able to really make it happen live. I guess there were just people had different priorities. Either the music that I was doing wasn't engaging enough, or it just wasn't popular enough. I guess that's another problem with what I've done over the past is get involved in some very kind of bizarre offshoots that are quite distant from where my home was, and my home is really rock and metal. And that's another thing that I would say to people is if you find a home, think very carefully before you decide to try and leave that home and do something different, because unless you're super, super popular and you can pull it off, you're unlikely to succeed.
In terms of, to give some context, I run the lounge bar in Alton, and Tesseract played there from 2010, or no, potentially even earlier than that, maybe 2008, 2009 even. And I think, as someone that puts on a few hundred bands every year, it's always interesting to spot the bands that you think will make it. And I think Tesseract, very early on, aside from the fact that the band became good friends anyway, it was a thing of seeing the crowd's response was something that I, on a professional level, certainly took notice of. For example, the gig that you played where you lost your voice, the crowd, I'm sure you remember, at some level, the crowd sang all the words to your album back to you, and you weren't a major band at the time. You weren't in the top 40, and you had played the bar a couple of times before, but it was one of those things that when I was filming it and standing there and talking afterwards, that was a very strange phenomenon in terms of a national band who weren't local to Hampshire at all being able to get that sort of response. So I can imagine that having left and tried other projects, and from what you've just described in regards to the projects not working as you felt, that it must have been well, how did you feel when the opportunity to rejoin Tesseract came about?
How did I feel? It's all a matter of, it's all been down to timing. Like everything just seems to have happened for a reason, and the timing's been perfect. Because this all kind of I mean, you've just mentioned that I lost my voice, and that's a really important, observation. Because as a singer, I was making a lot of mistakes, and I didn't realize what I was doing wrong. And I was writing stuff in the studio that was far too unrealistic for my own voice. The songs that we were writing were not in the right keys for my performances. And so what I had to do was I pushed myself to the absolute limit, the physical limit of my ability, which you could argue was a good thing and a bad thing. I mean, it kind of definitely highlighted a sweet spot in my own kind of approach, but from a physical perspective, and from a technique perspective, I was getting it all wrong, and I lost my voice consistently. There were times when I'd go on tour after the first 2 weeks I couldn't speak, and that was frightening. That was so frightening, because people counting on you to do, to be the front man and to lead the band. And if you can't do it, the band are left to their own devices. I mean, it's great that fans support it, but when it comes down to the business side of it as well, it can have an impact on all sorts of things. Bands getting paid and whatnot, and reputation being tarnished. So there was a lot of pressure to kind of, make sure I could sing all the time, and I didn't have the skills. So basically, when I left Tesseract, I went away and I studied, and I really learnt my craft, and I began to teach people as well, and that's where my vocal coaching business began, and that's how I developed my own voice, because I had to be responsible and accountable as well for teaching other people, and so I had to really study hard, and on the back of that I became a much better singer, a much more well-rounded singer. And I think that was the turning point for me, because I managed to find another little angle. Like all of a sudden, I could make a living from teaching people to sing, and obviously being a vocal coach is extremely relatable to being in a band, and I was able to exist within the music world just by teaching, rather than, you know, having a part-time job and doing other things. And so that steadily grew and grew and grew up until the point where Tesseract or Jay got back in touch and said, you know, things aren't quite working out with Ash. Would you come back? And I was like, dude, you've come to me at the right time. This was meant to happen. Let's just start from where we left off and nail it. And that's what we've been doing ever since. You know, people talk about, oh, you know, like Tesseract have had so many different vocalists, blah blah blah. But I'm the singer of 1, 2, 3, 3.5 of the 4 releases, or 4.5 releases that the band's had, and soon to be 5. So I've always been the main singer, and I've been back with Tesseract for what is it, like, since 2014.
When you returned, did you find an extra pressure in, as you mentioned, in terms of you'd learnt your craft more and learning to sing in a key that suits you as best as possible? And obviously your singing style was different to Elliot and to Ash's. So when singing those songs, did you find an extra pressure in making them your own, or feeling like you had to
I did,
sing
yeah.
in their style?
It's a really funny thing, because I think when you're a DIY artist at our level, when we first started, you're working with people that are also, you know, underground, new to the business, let's say. Maybe people with talent, but not a lot of experience. And I certainly was one of those people. So when I recorded the vocals for one, I just pushed it, and I did things in the studio that were far too unrealistic to do live consistently at that current at my current level of ability. And so when I returned back to Tesseract, how I was having to sing, you know, Asher's songs on Altered State. And again, this is no disrespect at all to Ash, because he's an absolutely phenomenal singer, but he actually made a lot of the same mistakes that I did, where he would write lines that were very difficult to do live. And I know that he also struggled to do it live as well. And that was also his first, you know, gig. And so not only was I having to come back and retrain to sing the songs from one, I then had to train to be Ash and to try and, you know, pull off a lot of the songs that, you know, the vocals that he wrote as well. So I did feel a lot of responsibility, in honesty. And it's only just in the last couple of years where I've actually managed to put my own stamp on things and sing them with ease, to a decent level.
Okay. And off the back of, I guess, you know, retraining and improving yourself, obviously I can only assume that it became more fun and, you know, I guess more lucrative as well, you know, as you grew as a band,
Oh,
and
totally.
your reputation obviously improved as well. You know, off the back of that, have you got many memories, like positive memories of when you came back with this newfound, you know?
Oh, totally. Totally. I mean, so many that I can't remember any of them. Do you know what I mean? It's just one of those things where, you know, amazing opportunities just kept cropping up. I mean, the amount of festivals we've played and supported some amazing artists. It's been incredible. We've toured with some amazing artists as well. I mean, like, just going on tour with Megadeth and Meshuggah was incredible around North America. You know, supporting Gojira, and even peers like, you know, just going on tour with The Contortionist and Sky Harbor and Error. That tour was amazing. I mean, we've toured with Between the Buried and Me and Pliny, and Astronoid so many times now. I've lost count. But to be honest, they're the best shows. They're the best people to hang around with. And I think, you know, there's nothing worse than going on tour with a band that you just don't get on with. Like, we've been very fortunate to have toured with, you know, pretty much every band has been amazing. And I think that's a reflection of the world that we, you know, live in. I think prog metal, you know, gent, if you like. I think people are really cool, you know.
Out of interest, have there been any bands that you get on with? You don't have to name them, but that you get on with, but
Get on with.
but you might not necessarily enjoy the music of, obviously, because you have to see sometimes you'll be hearing and seeing those bands night after night. Just curious, obviously, sometimes you do learn to appreciate bands, but ultimately, you can still not necessarily
Well, the
enjoy
thing
it.
is, there are actually very few bands that I, like really enjoy. Do you know what I'm saying? Like bands that turn me on because because I'm a musician. I'm producing music all the time and vocals. I get very lost in the detail, so I don't often get the chance to stand back and just enjoy music. So it's very rare that I'll go on tour with a band and perhaps know all of their repertoire. I have to kind of like learn it and watch it live. And I have to say that there hasn't really been a band that I haven't enjoyed. In all honesty, again, we've been really lucky. I think, well, to be honest, I think I really do love Meshuggah. I think their music is amazing. But then they've never been a band for me. They've never been a band that, I mean, they are the godfathers of Gen. They created it. But I never, when I joined Tesseract, I never knew who they were. I'd never heard of Meshuggah. So
Right,
I mean,
okay.
I come from a world which is much more focused on kind of pop in some respects. That's what I mean.
A
You
friend
can
of
hear
all
that
of
in
ours
my
here.
voice. I'm kind of a contemporary, rock singer, I guess. I'm definitely not a screamer and a full on metalhead for sure.
You can scream though. You did it on the first album.
I can scream, and I probably will. Probably will scream on the next album as well.
A friend of all of ours that everyone here knows once said that they thought Meshuggah sounded like Roadworks.
I wouldn't go that far. They are incredible. I've seen them live so many times. I obviously supported them on tour, and they've got the best live band. But I do find that it's a bit full on. It's a bit too intense for me at times. It's kind of like sensory overload. I'm sure if you've been to one of their shows, it's like you just stood there and all of a sudden it's like, what is going on? Wow, I can't close my eyes. I can't close my
Arc
ears.
Tangent last year.
It's so offensive.
Everything they had. Sorry, I didn't mean to talk over you there.
No, go for it.
Arc Tangent, the stage set they had, and obviously they have the famous lighting guy as well, and everyone was just debating whether it's all auto cued now because it was so accurate. It was just next level. The best thing I think I've seen at a festival for a very long time.
Amazing.
In terms of your trajectory of career, I would say that a few years ago I would have referred to you as a singer, and for example, I mean, not in any way pretending otherwise, that I've been at a huge amount of Tesseract shows for much of your career due to my friendship with Jay predominantly, in terms of it's been a huge source of pride that despite the fact that you've outgrown my own venue, that I've seen you perform in so many different arenas, and not arenas in a technical term, but I mean so many different situations, and always nail it. But I would probably refer to you as a performer more than a singer at this point, simply because I think you've worked really hard on your stage presence. And is that something that you've focused on deliberately, and why was that so important to you, and do you think that has been successful?
Yeah, I think there's a difference between being a singer and a performer. I would say that the more comfortable I got with my own ability, the more that freed me up to actually enjoy being on stage. And I think the performance kind of flowed off the back of that, to be honest. It could just kind of, it was always there to be had. It was always there to be developed, but I could never pull myself away from concentrating so much on the singing because it was so difficult that I could actually perform. Whereas now I've got a grip of it all. I know how to sing.
Yeah.
So I can just enjoy performing now, and moving around on stage and just trying to develop a bit of a character, I guess. I mean, some of my all-time favorite artists were performers, didn't just stand there and sing. They had real character, and I feel like I'm a late bloomer. I've always been a late bloomer, but I feel like now I'm kind of slowly, finding my own zone.
And in terms of finding your own zone, do you think the Zeta album kind of helped push a slightly different side to that?
Everything helps. That's another kind of positive from all the different side projects, is that I'm delving into different genres, different styles, and that has helped to kind of put colour and character into my own voice. It's definitely broadened my horizons as a singer for sure. I wouldn't call myself a one-trick pony. That I like to use the whole spectrum of my singing voice. Like with the White Moth stuff, there's a lot of delicate vocals where 1 second I can be singing in a chest, then flick into a high mix into head voice and back down, and there are runs everywhere, and that takes a lot of vocal control, and you don't have that unless you're very loose and relaxed. Whereas with the Tesseract stuff, that's very kind of, there's a lot of projection behind a lot of those vocals, so I have to have a lot of stamina and power to be able to sing that. Whereas Zeta, that's just me having fun and indulging in like that's probably the area of music that I can be the most pop. I can be a pop singer in Zeta, and that's fine.
And do you think you're looking forward to performing that one day?
Yeah, I mean, we've spoken about it. I mean, there's obviously Tesseract is the priority, and it always will be. So we are getting busier, and things are happening for us now. And it's the thing with Tesseract is we've never really had a plateau. There's always been a steady upward growth, and so we're always looking for the next way of developing the live show and the next big tour and the next big record. And yeah, so I can only see us getting busier and busier, in all honesty. And to be honest, I think we all want to ride that wave while we can. Want to take it as far as we possibly can. But there may be some scope for me to take my solo project live, because that is, in essence, going to be rock and metal. So the first album, which came out last year, was called Castles. I would say it's electronic contemporary music.
Yeah.
But I'm remaking that into a rock and metal record, and I'm already working on the second follow-up with Paul Ortiz from Chimp Spanner. He's a good friend of mine, and we've been working together for ages now. He's also part of Zeta. So potentially, if we take the solo stuff live, then we could probably incorporate some Zeta in that as well.
Yeah, we actually had him on the show last week. I don't think he spoke as positively of you as you did about him. But there you go.
Why? What did he say?
No, joking. Just joking.
Like Paul's nasty about anybody.
I could just imagine. No, he's awesome. He's lovely. Katie and Paul are amazing producers and writers as well. I mean, we are actually writing for the second Zeta release at the minute, and the ideas are just fantastic. It's it's just a creative outlet. There's no desire to push it and be something amazing with it. We're just having fun and releasing music. We're not signed to a label, and it was really fun, because when we released the first Zeta album, which was 3 years ago now, it actually hit the Billboard charts, the dance and electronic charts in America. We got to number 7. Wow. And the people from Billboard were like, we just wanted to let you know that you've kind of charted, and you're the first dance artist to have released an album with no guest features in years. Because obviously electronic and dance, there are guest features left, right, and centre, and we were like, okay, this is just us. This is an album.
Wow.
So that's a really cool thing. So who knows, man? Obviously, people liked it. People bought it.
We were quite cruel and put Paul on the spot about playing it live on the podcast, so we won't do the same to you.
Playing it like, why? What did he say?
I think he was being very classically Paul and being very polite and saying how. I mean, we came up with this whole Rick Wakeman fancy cape thing, idea. Push that towards him, and yeah, he was incredibly polite about it. We even designed his light show.
We need all the help we can get. Yeah, it's just it's such a weird thing, because obviously it's synthwave and retro, I mean, doing that kind of stuff live between the three of us, like, we're not even sure how we'd even do that anyway. Oh, who knows? Who knows? Stranger things have happened.
So nowadays you're a streamer. So if anyone didn't know that you are doing streaming, could you tell us about what you do online?
Man, I'll tell you something. This is just another twist in the story that I never expected. And to be honest, I'm kind of embracing the future. I mean, you can already tell, like, all of a sudden we're on lockdown and people are, musicians left, right, and centre are like doing live performances, recording live stuff and streaming. I kind of was on that train before a lot of people jumped on the back of it. That's great though, because the more people that do, the better. So live streaming, in terms of music on Twitch, is a relatively niche area of Twitch. I mean, there is one really big streamer, so Matt Hafey from Trivium. He's been doing it for a long time now, and he's a really big streamer. So he plays his guitar and he sings through all the Trivium stuff, and he games as well. And he actually plays games with some of the best gamers in the world. So he's having a really fun time. And so I never really knew what Twitch was until I started just for a laugh. I can't remember why or when, but I'd got Resident Evil 2 when the remake first came out. Was it a year and a half ago, something like that?
Yeah.
And I had my PS4 controller and I had a little earpiece and I plugged it into the controller and I streamed it from my PS4 on YouTube, and I thought this will be funny. I'll see who tunes in and watches it. So I didn't even have a camera. It was just me playing it with a little microphone, seeing if anyone was there. And people loved it. They were like, "Oh man, you should do more of this. This is so much fun." And Tesseract happened to go on tour, maybe like a week or two later. I think I was actually on downtime before I went on tour. That's what I was doing. And someone turned up to a show with a banner, a big luminous green banner. It was huge. And it said, "Dan, play more #Res2 online." That was it.
Wow.
And that's the first ever banner Tesseract's ever had at a show. It took three people to hold it, and it was like obstructing so many people's views. It was crazy. And so I was like, what is it? What am I looking at? Play more Res2. And I'm singing this while I'm singing and looking at it at the same time. I'm like, what is this? And so I met them all, this like group of people, and they'd like done some artwork for me, and they were saying like, we were the people that were watching you play it. You should do more of it. And so anyway, when I got back, I decided to do it again, and it went down really well. And then someone messaged me and said, "Dan, I've seen you streaming. You should really get on Twitch, and if you want, I can help you to develop your Twitch profile and get it all set up and help you to be, a streamer." I was like, you know what, this sounds really fun. Thank you for your help. Let's do it. Yeah, and I became friends with this friend of mine, and they helped me to develop my Twitch platform. I didn't know what it was. I didn't know the etiquette involved in it. I didn't really get it at all. But it's a totally different world. Like live streaming and the audience and the community that you can create is so tight. It's an amazing way of engaging with fans and followers and friends, and it's so much fun. And so what I've been doing is I started out again with the PS4, and the person that was helping me develop the channel said, "Okay, so what you can do is you can set up a PayPal donations thing, and people can like throw bits at your channel, and you can trigger emotes and different alerts, and people love it because it's really interactive, and you get to have a laugh." And all of a sudden, people were donating thousands of pounds to my channel, in order to help me to develop and buy and build my own streaming setup. So on the back of doing that for 6 months, I managed to buy a new interface, two monitors, a supercomputer, a DSLR camera, a green screen and lighting setup, and get Cubase on the desktop, all the plugins, all the capture cards, everything that I need in order to stream. And it was born from the fan base. They wanted me to do it. They donated, and I did everything they wanted me to do. And it's enabled me to now stream for a living, because when you stream on Twitch, you can basically make revenue from that. So when someone subscribes to your channel, Twitch take a percentage, and the streamer will get a percentage, and then people can donate to your channel and all sorts of things. And it's just it's an amazing world. It really is incredible. Not only is it a great way of engaging with people, but it's a brilliant way of rehearsing and being creative and engaging the fan base at the same time. So I'm writing new ideas and I'm recording it and showing people my Cubase session live. They're listening to me in really amazing quality. It's basically like being in the same room with me while I'm working. And also raising money for charity as well. That's another aspect to it. Like I did like a game-a-thon. We raised like just under £5,000 for Macmillan Cancer Support. I was like,
Amazing.
wow, incredible. It's everything I've wanted to do. I've been praying for a chance to be able to do everything in one place. To be a singer, to entertain, to give back to charity, to make a living. And online streaming is the way forward. It is the future. Telling you.
It's amazing, but since before the digital age, where we had the aloof rock stars, and that's what it was about, and now it's all about access.
Yeah,
and the
totally
people
is.
who are making a success of it are people who are engaging.
People didn't need to though. Can you remember, like in the 80s, if you got a record deal and you got a single on the radio, you were making millions. Like you were instantly famous. You were televised all over the radio, records selling left, right, and centre. That's the 80s was the last era where there were a massive boom in like the record industry, and then obviously with the digitization, slashed, boom, everything's screwed. Artists are not getting picked up. Labels aren't giving big record deals anymore. It's basically, unless you've got a fan base and unless you've worked for it and done all the hard work yourself, a record label is not going to work with you because they don't want to risk losing money. And you've got to show that you can sell tickets to shows and that you can sell records so that they'll invest in you. But they won't take the risk because it's too dodgy. It's too much hard work, too much risk involved. So I was talking about this the other day because on my Twitch platform, what I do is I've got some playlists on Spotify. So as a way of kind of like helping out underground artists, I've been getting people to submit their Spotify tracks to me on my Facebook page, and my moderators on Twitch, who are like fans that help out, they've created a massive Excel sheet of like nearly 700 submissions. So we've got like Spotify links, all the details of the artist, and what we do is we play it live on the Twitch channel, and then add it to the Spotify list. And so that's another awesome way of engaging with people and also helping underground artists get noticed as well. Because being from the grassroots myself, I do feel like I'm an advocate for the underground artist. I've been there and I know what it's like. So to get noticed and get listened to by a new audience is mega important for new artists.
I think one of the things that has stood out about your Twitch streaming is exactly a semblance of what you've covered, in that you're not just using it as a platform for yourself. You have actively promoted charities and upcoming artists that you want to champion. So with that in mind, A, that's a really commendable thing to be doing, and I think it's been noticed by the community as a whole. And B, who have you discovered and what have you been listening to at the moment that you want to highlight in particular?
Oh man, you know something? It's criminal. It is it's criminal, right? So there are some incredible artists out there that have got like 10 follows on Spotify and like 100 plays on the track, and the quality is just unbelievable. So a couple of standout artists. All right, so on my first playlist, right at the top, is a band called Memorist, and they are phenomenal. Like they've got a song called Loss, and it's actually got 196,000 plays. It's their most popular track. The rest aren't so popular, but man, they need to be given a chance and been put on, get gigging and put on the scene, because really, really cool stuff. And then you've got an artist called Noisia, so Noija. Check those guys out. There's a song called A Touch from the Sun, which is mind blowing. And they're artists from all over the world. Just people, bands trying to get the name out there. And also, I'm sure you all know who K-Mac is. So K-Mac
Yeah.
2021 has released an album, and he's got a song called Butterfly, and it's gorgeous, man. So good. But yeah, like these playlists have both got 100 songs on them each at the minute, and the quality is just brilliant. It's such a saturated world. I think to really stand out, you've got to be doing something a little bit different. You know, there has to be a spin on some angle somewhere, because unfortunately there are a lot of bands that are just replicating the same stuff, and it is a bit samey and it's a bit unfortunate. So my advice to anyone out there, if you want to kind of, you know, make it as a band, think about what you're playing. I mean, if you're doing it for fun, then fine. You know, be a Meshuggah ripoff. We've been there, we've done it. But think about a way to do something different and inject some new flavour into what you're doing. Pay close attention to what your peers are doing and what the scene's like, and be creative. Because unless you stand out, you don't, you know, you never really stand a chance of booming.
Solid advice.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much for talking to us, Dan. We'll let you get back to swapping childcare with Emma, and hope that I'll endeavour to watch more of your streams soon, because I have been enjoying the ones that I've been able to catch. So thank you for providing that service. And although we're not here to act as your therapist, I would like to comment that your views that you feel like you spread yourself too thin and are not sure whether you should have done the extent of the projects you did, I would speak on behalf of a lot of fans of those projects and say we are still glad that you did them. So thank you for experimenting as much as you did, and have a bit more confidence in what you've done, because everyone has really appreciated them.
That's really kind.
Thank you very much for joining us today. And if you want to find Dan,
hopefully we'll see you at Radar at some point. I'm excited to come down. I want to be a part of it.
We'd love to have you there. Absolutely. You're very welcome to anything that we're involved in. You always know that.
Our people will talk to your people.
Yeah.
Right, well, thank you very much, and we'll speak to everybody soon.
No worries.
Stay safe.